to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored to be joined here today by several of our Nightly News Media Club students, but also one of the most important groups on campus that we've certainly talked about in recent memory with the West Shore Connect. So I'm being joined by several folks that are involved in either or both of those organizations, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what they have going on with a very special initiative on campus. So today I would like to welcome Sherry Brenzier. Sherry, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It is my pleasure. And you are the coordinator of the West Shore Connect program, correct?
Correct.
And just tell us a little bit more about the West Shore Connect program. I know our dedicated listeners will remember our discussion about a PSA that we did recently, but tell us a little bit more about the Connect program.
Sure. So the West Shore Connect program is a collaboration between the West Shore School District and Central Penn College. And what we are doing is we currently this school year have 11 students who are ages 18 to 21. And they're actually from our high school classrooms at West Shore School District. And they've completed 4 complete years of high school. And our program now is extending their high school career till they're 21 by bringing them onto campus. And by bringing them onto campus, they are spending time auditing classes on campus, doing work in our suite on campus, and then also getting involved in any other activities that are happening on campus.
Awesome. And we are so happy to be part of this. So last year was like the pilot, right? You had a couple of students, and those students all did very, very well. Of course, Addie is one of those students. I've had Addie in several classes. I hope to have you in class again next term as well. Yep. But the growth just in that 1 year of these students is just frankly remarkable. I mean, I only really had, I don't want to say limited interaction. I had a good bit of interaction, but you were seeing that growth every day. So tell us a little bit more about the growth that you saw from this pilot program last year.
Sure. Yeah. Last year we had 3 students on campus. Again, they were auditing classes. They were interacting with their same age peers on campus, doing different activities, and also just doing some life skill type things in our suite. And the growth that they made in one school year was absolutely amazing. And the growth was not in such things as academic per se, but it was in maturity, in self-advocacy, in reaching out to people to find out information if they needed it themselves instead of asking another adult to do it. So more of their adult skills is what really boomed for them being on campus.
I had Addie in 2 different classes, and I saw the academic growth. I mean, it was pretty remarkable. All right, so we're also being joined by Addie Makanovich.
How you doing?
Well, we're doing great here, and Addie is actually one of our newest Nightly News Media Club members, but Addie, this is the 2nd year in the program, also the star of our documentary, by the way.
Yeah.
How was that experience? Let's start at the beginning. When you first knew that you were going to be coming to Central Penn College, what did that mean to you, and how were your first couple of days here on campus?
I thought it was pretty good. I had a lot to work on myself whenever I came here, though, like the growth and all that, the maturity.
So now what's it like this 2nd year? Now all of these other folks that are joining the West Shore Connect program are new, and you're the veteran, and you're the leader, and you're the one that's helping them out. Well, what's that like?
It's tough.
Tough?
I mean,
why is it tough?
Because a lot of these new students need to work on their maturity, too.
Well, remember, you were there once, too, so don't give them too hard of a time. And we're also being joined here by the Nightly News Secretary, Abby Bresky. Abby, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the interesting things about Abby is that you are a mentor. Even before I knew you, even before I even knew who you were, I knew that you were involved with the West Shore Connect program. So tell me, why is this something that you do as a major part of your academic experience here at Central Penn College?
So I've always made it my life mission to understand people and to let people know that there are people out there that do genuinely care about you and your story. And I think that everybody has battles that they go through. And I think going through high school, everybody wants to be accepted and have that understanding that there are people out there for them. And I wanted these students to know that I'm there for them, and I want everybody on campus to be there for them because they are here for the experience, and I want them to have the best experience they can.
I think it's wonderful that you have taken this mission as part of your life, the fact that you are and want to help others, I think it's so commendable. And I hope that Addie and the rest of the crew realizes how much of a wonderful experience it is to have somebody like you that's in the academics and is also a college student and works and has responsibilities, and you're able to be there to help them and foster this growth that you've seen. So tell me a little bit more. So you knew the year one bunch well before even I did. So tell me what you thought in terms of their growth over that first year here.
I think going through, so I started about, I would say, the winter term when they first started. And just from the winter term to, I'd say, about the end of the spring term, you could see that they were like kind of finally starting to see their space, kind of finding who they are as a college student. And I think it was just really cool to see their independence growing and their maturity and them kind of owning the fact that they are a college student and they're not, separated from everybody else. They are a college student and they are respected as one, and they're an individual that can do what they set their mind to.
Awesome. Well, I want to kind of come back to one of the projects that we worked on, just a little bit about the PSA, and then I want to talk about some exciting things that are going on with West Shore Connect, not only this term, but going forward. So one of the first times that I met Sherry was when she had reached out to see if we, as the Nightly News, would be interested in putting together I don't even want to call it a PSA at this point. I want to call it like a mini documentary about what West Shore Connect does. This was a really cool opportunity for myself to work with one of my students who graduated, one who's getting ready to graduate, and then, of course, Abby, who's one of our wonderful new students here that's in the Nightly News. So we basically put a script together, and we scouted locations, and we blocked off time on our calendars, and we had props, and we had all kinds of different areas to shoot. It was really, really something special, and we got really lucky with the weather the first day. I remember that because we had an indoor day and an outdoor day, and the first day was just a beautiful, beautiful afternoon. Of course, the second day it rained, but we were inside, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, Sherry, let me ask you, tell me a little bit more about some of the feedback that maybe came from the school district, maybe feedback that I'm not aware of or haven't heard.
Absolutely. We'll call it the mini documentary. I like that term. Has been an amazing opportunity for our program to get out what we do and who we are. Of course, when it first came out, I kind of pushed it right over to our administration over at the West Shore School District, and they kind of ran off it with themselves. They sent it to the school board. They sent it to everyone that they know. I know it's used within the district not only to kind of look for more students to come in following years, but also just for staff to show kind of what else is happening in West Shore School District besides what's just happening in the brick and mortar schools. We now have our own web page on the school district site, and this our documentary kind of was the underlying piece of that, so we could show it off on there. And again, it pops up here and there everywhere. We have some of our staff who actually have it on their email as a permanent little mark there that anyone can look at it at any time. So the documentary really has been our stepping stone. We show it to any person that's interested in district or out of district. I actually used it this term for some classes here on campus to kind of tell some students about our program, to look for more mentors. So it really is the jumping ground for us to get our program out in a nice little short way.
It really meant so much for me personally to do this, not only because I have a son with special needs myself, and he was able to be in high school till he was 21 years old. Unfortunately, much like many of these students, he didn't have a whole lot of opportunity beyond the classroom. It was a lot of repetition. It was a lot of from like 19 to 20 doing the same types of things. I just wish this would have been an opportunity that would have been available for him. But it was also having this opportunity to work with the folks from the club in sort of a non-professor role, It was just us as people trying to do something not only, that you'd ask us to do and something to help promote your program, but also for us to get some experience on doing these types of things. I mean, Have you ever worked on a movie before, Abby?
No, definitely not.
But it was so interesting because you were such an important piece of that. I know that maybe in hindsight you're like, oh, all I did was just talk to a couple people, but you got to understand, like, what you did was unbelievably valuable to what we were doing, and everybody played a role. And that was what was so important for this, was the collaborative nature, and just getting to work with some of my students outside of the classroom was something I've hoped for a long time. So tell me, and I don't want to put words into your mouth, right? Tell me a bit more about your impressions on the PSA. I know you were on a previous show, but just in case people didn't hear that one.
So the PSA was definitely something that I was excited to do. I think even hearing the students be excited about it, like I know, Addie, you were very excited about it, and I love it. I think it was just something more than them coming to college. I think it was something that gave them recognition for what they're doing and the obstacles that they are overcoming. I think it was just kind of giving them credit as well as other students seeing what they can do. So I think overall it was just something that was important to me, and it was something that I felt like I had to do.
And you did a wonderful job, and I think I'm so happy that, like, instantly after we released that, there were hundreds of views. Like, it was pretty incredible, but definitely something that we're all proud of, and something that we hope that is beneficial. It seems that it has been, but I'm so glad that we were able to do that. And Dylan, I got to give you a lot of credit if you're listening to it. You did a fantastic job. Dylan basically shot everything, edited everything, and told the story. So.
Yeah, he did a good job.
Well, and you're, like I said, you're the star. So if anybody wants to see Addie's starring role in the PSA, you can just go to the Nightly News on YouTube, and you can check that out. Well, what I really want to talk about for the last few minutes here on the show is a new initiative that has been put together not only by the Student Activities Department, but also the West Shore Connect. And one of the things that you have done is, over the course of this fall term, you have created a club called Connection Tuesdays. So tell us a little bit more about what the Connection Tuesdays is, and we can talk a bit more about what the future might hold for it.
Sure. So, kind of taking one little step back, when we showed up on campus, and kind of our overall vision was that we really wanted to be involved and immersed on campus as much as possible. And we've done a great job with that, with auditing classes. And this school year, we've also taken on doing some jobs on campus. But the one piece that was really missing were those club times, when our students really want to be part of clubs. Clubs are huge here on campus.
Mm-hmm.
People are always talking about clubs. And our students were like, well, I want to be part of a club. But what we started seeing is that most clubs meet in the evenings, and we're only on campus till about 3:15 each day. So one part that we really wanted to incorporate this year was building our own club, and if we build it, they will come. That is kind of our mantra at West Shore Connect. So I got together with Adrian and said, hey, how can we get a club together that includes not only West Shore Connect, but everyone involved with the campus clubs? So we sat down and we came up with an idea that we would have a club called Connection Tuesdays, meaning every second Tuesday of the month, we would have a club. We would stay after school, so our students would stay from 3 to 5, but we would have other clubs on campus kind of come in and support, or come in and kind of oversee an evening of activities or an evening of something that they choose to share with our students. So that's kind of what Connection Tuesday is it's our students coming in with another club each month and giving them some type of college experience.
So you've already had one of those, and actually it's interesting that on the day of this podcast's release, they will have their next one. But you have another one coming up on December 13th as well. Now, nothing is quite scheduled for that one just yet. So if you would like to be involved with this, you can always reach out to Adrienne Thoman at centralpenn.edu, and she can give you some more additional insight. But so you already had one this year. Tell us about what the October event was for Connection Tuesdays.
Sure. So our first Connection Tuesday club meeting type thing was we went to the men's soccer game. It was a lot of fun. Addie, how about it? We had a huge cheering section going on, did we not?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was fun just to get out and support the sports teams also, something that we as West Shore Connect program have not done yet. So it was amazing to be able to do that too.
Apparently they didn't win.
Oh, they didn't win, but man, you guys cheering was amazing.
We tried.
Addie, tell me a little bit more about the experience. What happened when you went over? Have you ever been to a soccer game before like that?
No, not really. I've never been to a soccer game at all, actually.
Well, now you can check that one off your bucket list.
Yeah.
What'd you do over there? Tell me a little bit more about it.
I cheered about much.
I'm glad that you're able to do that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that this is a wonderful thing in the future that continues to happen. I mean, Sherry, is this something that you foresee happening, at least in the winter and even spring terms going forward?
Absolutely. We have dates throughout for the rest of the school, our considered school year through May, I think we go through. We might even have one in June because I know we go to the end of June. So it might go all the way to June. So we do have dates actually scheduled. Again, Adrian has those dates. I have those dates. So we're looking for not only clubs to kind of sponsor each month, but we're also just looking for folks who want to hang out with us and kind of just join us in general. So if you're not part of this actual club that's doing it that month, coming and doing stuff with us is always much encouraged also.
It's a lot of fun.
And Addie, one of the interesting things here is you are a part of the Nightly News Media Club.
Yep.
This is actually your first podcast.
Yes.
So tell me, how have you enjoyed this experience so far?
I think it's pretty good. This is my like you said, it's my very first podcast, and this is very exciting for me.
I could hear you on 105.7 the X, driving down the road, coming home from work.
Yeah.
So Abby, one of the things that you're doing is you're doing mentorship of these individuals. And so tell me a little bit more about what that entails, in case anybody is interested in maybe being a mentor either later this term or moving forward.
Mentor, I think, is just another word for just a friend, really. I think you just have to take it in as you're not there to necessarily teach them anything. You're there to help them with homework or sit there. Like on Thursdays, I go and have coffee with one of the students. I have Addie with me when I go to club meetings.
Yeah.
I walk them around in the morning. We pick up trash on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we talk about a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes we sing.
Sometimes.
It's just being there for them whenever you are available, taking them to class, taking them to the jobs that they do, to any club meetings that they're interested in. Just another friend.
I think what's so wonderful about this, especially with the new crew starting in the fall, is that not only are you getting involved with clubs, you're going to class, you're getting them jobs here on campus, doing some other things. Certainly, I'm sure going down to the caf for lunch.
Yeah.
But it's wonderful to see the growth of this program. I mean, it's just so, Sherry and your team, it's just so commendable to see. And of course, Abby too, like it wouldn't be what it is without you. And I hope that, obviously I know you, Abby, this is so important to you and it's something that you think about a lot. So, well, here's the question I've been waiting for. So I'm going to just hold off. All right. So last year, it was just you and a couple of other folks.
Yep.
What's it like in the suite with all of these new people?
It's complicated.
How so?
A little bit of drama here and there, but we make it through.
Drama.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that might be.
It's complicated.
Well, we don't need to. We'll keep everybody private on that one. But
Yeah.
I do think that it's really interesting and unique that, Addie, you're in a wonderful situation here where you get to, again, maybe not everybody's going to get along with everybody all the time. But what I can say is I trust me that the folks that are there that just started really do look to you for leadership and guidance. And I'm sure you've been doing that.
Yeah.
So and you got to remember that's what the employers always are looking for. They want the people to step up that are going to be leaders, and this is a way for you to gain that leadership and continue that growth. You know what I mean? And I think that's so important.
Yep. Thank you.
Man of few words, Addie. Well, and Sherry, too, I really want to thank you for everything that you've done with the organization. Not only just making this happen in the first place, but reaching out, wanting to get this PSA done, and really just trying to get this group exposed to more aspects of college life. So, I mean, it's so commendable that you've done that, and you obviously enjoy your work. And I'm sure sometimes, some days are easier than others, but in the end, I think that this is such a rewarding opportunity for these folks.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having us. And man, Central Penn has been amazing with our program
Yeah.
all the way around.
It has, seriously.
Well,
it helped us out a lot.
We are glad to continue to be a part of this. And Abby, what can I say? Thank you for being you. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you do with the club. And thank you for your help being a mentor with West Shore Connect.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for welcoming into the West Shore Connect program.
Not a problem. All right. Well, Addie, it's been my pleasure to have you. We'll have to have you back on a future podcast, seeing as you're a club member. I love having you on. You got a voice made for radio. I'm telling you, man. I love it.
Thank you.
So, and you're a big music fan too. Maybe we'll have you back, talk a little bit more about that as well.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. I want to thank the crew from West Shore Connect, Sherry Brenzier, Abby Bresky, and Addie Mukanovich. We will see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.
Hey, this is Sai Pinthong. Thank you for listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome, everybody, to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller, and I am so honored to be joined by the Nightly News co-president, Alexa Shughart. Alexa, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. And we had you back last term when you were interning with the Central Penn College Education Foundation, but we're happy to have you back this term. So one of the main reasons that I wanted to have you on this term is this is actually your last term here at Central Penn College, and this is your last podcast that we're going to have you on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something that you've made quite an impression on many of us here at the school, and that's talking about your passion for music journalism. But I want to ask you a couple of questions before we get into that. First of all, as you think back to your experience here at Central Penn and being a part of the Nightly News, when you leave here and move on to be an illustrious alumni, what are some things you're going to take away, and what are maybe some memories that you have of your experience being a part of the club?
Being a part of the club has really helped me grow not only as a student, but also helped me gain experience in what I want to do, which you mentioned. Probably the dream job of mine would be to be a music journalist, and working for the club, I've had multiple opportunities to attend events on campus and write stories about those events, and a lot of them have been music events. I know one of the first stories I did when I came to Central Penn was how COVID, because this was during the pandemic, was how COVID has been affecting kind of musicians and how they played in a pandemic world. And I also got to do a documentary on that for school, which was outside of the club, but it's still like those are all things that I was able to do and memories I was able to make that helped me gain experience and while doing something that I love doing.
Well, let's start at the beginning. So what was it? I remember, and you just brought this up in our pre-show meeting, one of the very first classes that you had, I was asking you to think about what your long-term goals were. And you talked about music and being a music journalist and writing about music. What is it about music that you love so much? I mean, look, I love music. Many people probably love music, but so much so that you're actually investigating doing this as a career. So tell me what it is about music that you love so much and that you've enjoyed over all of these years growing up.
I think what my thing is that music is so versatile, from the genres to the lyrics to the beats. It's all basically an art form, and what keeps my attention is how even with the media world, but also in the music world, it's constantly changing. Every day there's a new trend, and it's just always basically there's another level to go over in the media and music world, and that's what I love about it so much. I studied basically music and how it's changed over time. I love music from the 70s, and a lot of times I'll listen to music from the 70s, but then I'll kind of research how the music from the 70s inspired the 90s and hip-hop era. So it's all how it goes throughout time and how one generation influences the next, and that's something that I love to learn about and feel like you can apply that for generations to come.
I think what's really interesting is, this is just one particular example, like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they, over maybe the past decade or so, and really in the history of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they've actually done a lot of inducting older artists that on the surface you wouldn't think were rock and roll as we think about it today. And people ask, like, well, why are you bringing in some people from the 30s and 40s and old school R&B? Why are you bringing in those folks to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? And the bottom line is because they had the really cool experience of influencing some of the most important people that have ever played music, people like Elvis and the Beatles. they weren't just looking back at other rockers. They were looking back at other musicians. And I give the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame a lot of credit for putting people in that aren't necessarily rockers like you would think. Do you remember the first time you had a positive experience with music, and do you remember what that was?
I just feel like growing up, the music that I listened to was whatever my parents were listening to. And I just remember kind of being in the backseat of the car, like hearing the music that they were listening to. And it would probably not be music that a kid would like, but I just like fell in love with it. And then as I got older, I kept listening to what my parents would listen to. And then I would listen to what my grandparents might have listened to, and then what my great grandparents would have listened to. So it was definitely like growing up, the people in my lives that got me to listen to what I was listening to at the time, but then also expanding my own knowledge and finding like a deeper meaning and a deeper passion for the music that came from past generations, and then also enjoying my current generation's music.
I think it's really unique that you've admitted that you looked back into not only some of the things that your parents were listening to, but even now it seems like you still listen to such a wide and diverse range of music. And do you think that not only maybe your parents' influence, but your grandparents' influence, do you think that had something to do with the eclectic taste that you have in terms of music?
Yeah, definitely. Like my love for 90s hip hop came from my parents, but my love for 70s music came from my own research. And even with my great grandparents loving old country music, kind of how even Elvis Presley, I've taken a liking to him. So it's definitely a mixture of both, of what I like versus what my parents like, and how that created me to go and find what I like on my own.
Now, I want to talk a bit more about the documentary that you did. And so what Alexa's talking about, we had a class where I worked with a lot of the students to make their own documentaries. And this was also really toward the tail end of COVID. I want to say it was the fall that we came back here on campus. And so tell us a little bit about how you approached this documentary, who you talked to, and what impact that had on you even today.
So I definitely wanted to do something with music because that is a dream goal of mine, and because it's just something I'm passionate about. And so I felt like the best way to do that would to be examining music in the current time period, and that was during a COVID-19 pandemic, and how kind of the music industry had changed during that time, which it had changed drastically. So I wanted to take that topic and kind of run with it. And from there, I was able to interview a local band who is actually doing some great things.
Yeah,
right
I was going to
now.
talk to you about that.
But so being able to interview them when they were just now starting off and seeing where they are going now, but interviewing them during a time when you couldn't go play out at a live concert because COVID restrictions were implemented, so they couldn't just go play music whenever they felt like it. I know once one event they had done was kind of they played local music and people drove by listening in their cars, and they live streamed it, and they had people from all over the world live streaming this event. So for me, I wanted to write about how the music industry was changing, but how we were adapting to it in a positive way.
One thing that I really loved, and probably to me, one of the most memorable stories that you worked on during your time here, was you interviewed, this was sort of even before you got involved with Jess Zimmerman, which we'll come back to that. You interviewed a local musician, Colt Wilbur, about some of these things. And I, at a time, worked for Colt, and one of the things that I was doing was helping him do some live streams. And they were able, now, yes, they're not going to fully replace all of the income from all of the shows during that year plus that they lost, but they were actually able to do that and as a way to not only create a revenue stream for themselves, but also share live music for people who frankly at the time couldn't leave their homes. And when I think about that, like, I hope that you look back on that as one of the, and I'll certainly, add that story along with this podcast. But when I think about it, that discussion that you had really kind of led to the several different music stories that you wrote. Not only we're talking about the documentary that you did about the Jess Zimmerman band, but also one of your more recent pieces where you're taking a more critical look at music journalism. But real quick, I want to move back. How did you get involved with Jess Zimmerman, and how was that an idea that you wanted to pursue for your documentary?
Both of my grandparents love to go to Nisley's, which is a wine vineyard, I think kind of out past Harrisburg near Middletown or somewhere along those lines. And they often every summer will have live music, and they have different bands playing different weekends. And I had heard of the Jess Zimmerman band, and I knew that they were pretty popular, and I wanted to try my hardest to be able to interview them because they're great musicians, and they're a great group of people. They're very kind and friendly. So I wanted to interview them. So I went ahead and emailed them, and I was on their Facebook page, actually, and I told them what my plan was, how I wanted to kind of shed light on their band and how they've been coping during the pandemic period. And they actually messaged me back right away. They were more than willing to work with me. So that's how I kind of stumbled upon them, and I'm so glad that I did because it was such a successful story, and I loved hearing what they had to say and how they were adjusting during the current time period.
And if you think about it, it's just sort of one snapshot in time. And I know things have changed, live music's back, but you also have to remember something else, Alexa, and maybe, I don't know to what point you've ever thought about this. There are a lot of places who stopped doing live music because of COVID and never started it back up. So a lot of these local musicians are not only losing the income that they would have made during that year plus, but they're also now have fewer venues to play at. Whether some of those venues close down entirely, as we know a lot of restaurants closed during COVID, but it also could be that some of these places just decided not to bring back live music. So have you had a chance to talk to Jess Zimmerman since, the initial interview?
I unfortunately have not. When I sent them the documentary, they really loved it and they appreciated it, and they told me to keep in touch, but they've also been very busy kind of doing their own thing. So I kind of feel like maybe they have more focuses on other things, but I'm sure they'd always be more than willing to talk about how they've kind of adapted.
Ever since you did that documentary, I've seen them. I went to see them once, and I've followed them on social media. They've won a bunch of different awards. I just saw that they were playing Nashville. I mean, you got in on the ground floor of the band.
I'm pretty sure when I interviewed them, they were telling me that they were getting ready to open up for the Country Music Awards, which is an amazing accomplishment for a band that started so small and has grown. And it's crazy to me that I got to be there when they were just now starting off, and now to see them so successful makes me so happy.
Yeah, I'm super happy for them too. Like, I always kind of think, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I know them because, you did that documentary. And again, I'm sure that they were very appreciative of you doing that. But now, so I want to just kind of move forward here a little bit. One of the biggest things that we talk about a lot in a lot of our different classes is the pros and cons of the internet community in terms of music journalism. And you wrote a piece for the Nightly News back in May of 2022 it's called The Future and Current State of Music Journalism. Just real quick, I can link to this, but tell me a little bit about what that article really was saying.
So that article was kind of just to point a focus as to where we are in the current state of not only media, but the music industry. When I first started at the college, I had a dream job of becoming a music journalist and really wanted to eventually work for Rolling Stone. And that's still a dream goal of mine, but I have to understand where we are, and that's the fact that anybody in today's world can review music. Before, if you wanted to review a piece, you had to go to college, you had to have a degree in writing, journalism, media, and you had to kind of follow these procedures that separated you from everyone else. And that's why in the 70s and the 80s, music journalists were such a predominant career because that was your focus. Now, in today's world, in today's society, anybody can do that job, and they don't have to go to college. They don't have to understand like the canons of journalism. Anybody can do it, and I wanted to write that story to shed light on the pros and cons of it, because although it is good to give everyone a voice, where is the line drawn where it becomes professional versus personal?
Oh, I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, that's a lot of the discussions we have throughout this program is yes, the internet's wonderful because it does give people that voice, but it also essentially takes away careers from people. I mean, it's not to say that you couldn't go out and be a music journalist. There are still venues to do that, but it's almost impossible to break into. And even if you were to break into it, let's say maybe you would get a job for Pennsylvania Musician or something, which is a local publication that still does cover music. Do you know how difficult that is to even get in there? And it's certainly not a full-time job. It'd be a situation where you're paid to write a story or two, and you'd still have to have another job. So, if nothing else, it's very frustrating from a point of view of somebody who's so passionate about music and so hopeful that music could be part of their career, and then to kind of see what's happened post-COVID especially, but really just to the journalistic field as a whole. So, all right, well, tell me a little bit more about where you see your future in terms of music. I know that you already have a position waiting for you when you get out of school, but don't let that dream die. How can you keep doing and being involved in music going forward, even if it's not necessarily your full-time job?
Well, I definitely feel that with today's society and wanting to be a music journalist, even though everyone else could be doing it, I'm still trying to hold on to that hope that I went to college for this and I'm going to apply it ethically, and do what I studied for the past 4 years to implement that in my future in the most professional way and responsible way possible. But as I continue throughout my career, I do want to keep building things to my portfolio to get to that point, whether that's going to local musicians, because I'm a big supporter of, support your local musicians, because eventually one day they could go big and then you were able to write about them when they were so small. So I definitely feel like moving forward, I'm going to continue to go to local music events, write about them, maybe post them onto my blog, and just keep going from there, because that's the way that I'm going to continue not only shedding light on local musicians, but also applying the 4 years that I've spent learning about what is ethically right and what is professional to build my portfolio for the time to come eventually.
You made a great point, and it was potentially posting some of this stuff to your blog. I think that that's a very unique way that you can still keep your foot in the door, and maybe down the line, let's say a Pennsylvania musician has a need for somebody to cover music, or maybe even for a local radio station website or things like that. The best thing that you can do is to do these types of things, show these organizations what you're capable of, and then hey, here's what I've been doing for the past couple years. So what I would just suggest is take advantage of every opportunity, every show to write up something to try to interview these bands. Listen, for the most part, these bands are extremely willing to give people a couple of minutes of their time to ask them a couple of questions. And I hope that you pursue that, because I'll just kind of leave it to you in this way, Alexa. One of the things that I always wanted to do with my life, and when I was in your shoes, is I wanted to cover sports. I covered sports when I was in college, but sports it didn't end up that way for me until I came to Central Penn. My passion from years and years ago has now parlayed into me helping to start sports broadcasting, to get to do that kind of thing. So even though initially working in sports didn't quite work out, because I kept my foot in the door, because I kept trying to find ways to utilize this dream that I had, I was able to come full circle to it. So I guess what I'm getting at is, if that's what you dream, yeah, are you going to get hired tomorrow for $100,000 to write for Rolling Stone? No, but that doesn't mean you should just give up. It means that you got to fight harder if this is really what you want to do, to showcase your abilities. And whether that's on your blog or whether you can reach out to other publications and see if they can, get some of your work published. I mean, we'll publish your work anytime you want on our blog, and we have the outlet to do that. So I hope in some small way that's helpful. But Alexa, before you leave, number one, I want to leave you with this. Follow your dream. If music's what you want to do, just find a way to be involved with live music. Talk to people, write up articles, review new albums. Give these folks on a local level this platform. But honestly, just because your career might right now be going in a different direction, you can still live and be a part of the music industry in this way. And I think it's something that you should definitely consider, whether on the blog, whether on the nightly news, or whether you can find other outlets to write about music.
Yeah, for sure. I'm definitely thankful for my time here at Central Penn and all of the experience that I was given. And now it's just up to me to continue building my portfolio even after I graduate. And even if I have a new job, it's just continuing to do what I love so that one day it'll eventually pay off. And I know for sure it will.
Absolutely. Well, Lex, I got to tell you, it's been my honor to have you not only on the podcast before, but as a part of the Nightly News Media Club. And we're definitely going to miss you, but just remember that we're not going to go anywhere. So just because you're not here anymore, you're always welcome to stay in touch with us. Come back for alumni weekends and come back to support your fellow students. So thank you so much for being here on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode of the Nightly News Podcast. For Nightly News co-president Alexa Shughart, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll see you again next time on the Nightly News Podcast.